I shot my father in the foot with his own hunting rifle the day he called me a whore and kicked me out into the snow. It wasn't planned. Hell, I was 17, hormones raging, heart shattering like cheap glass under his boot, but the crack of the gunshot echoed through our drafty upstate New York trailer like God's own judgment, and for a split second, I tasted the revenge I'd craved for 30 years. Blood pooled on the linoleum, mixing with the spilled coffee from breakfast, and my mother just stood there, clutching her rosary, whispering prayers that did nothing to stop the flood of curses flying from his lips as he howled in agony. That bullet didn't kill him, but it might as well have severed every tie we had left. They shipped me off to my aunts in Buffalo that night, the one who ran a dingy diner and smelled like fryer grease and regret. "You're poisoned now." Dad spat through the painkillers at the ER, his eyes glassy with booze and betrayal. Mom packed a single duffel, faded jeans, a couple of flannels, my baby book with the ultrasound pics she'd already torn in half. No goodbye hug, no whispered, "We'll figure this out." Just the slam of the car door and the taillights fading into the January blizzard, leaving me with a belly swelling under my thrift store sweater and a secret that wasn't mine alone to carry. The father? That was Tommy Hargrove, the golden boy from the next town over, captain of the high school football team with dreams of Clemson scholarships and NFL glory. We'd fumbled into love in the back of his daddy's Chevy, all awkward hands and whispered futures under the harvest moon. But when I told him about the 2 pink lines on the drugstore test, he laughed, actually laughed, like it was the punchline to some cruel frat house joke. "Ava, baby, this can't happen now. I've got scouts coming next month." Then he ghosted me, blocked my number, and let his buddies spread rumors that I was easy with half the marching band. By the time I waddled into homeroom with the truth written on my rounding hips, the whole school knew Ava Reynolds was knocked up and alone. Aunt Rita took me in out of pity, or maybe tax write-offs for her charity work. She made me bus tables at the diner from dawn till my feet swelled like overripe peaches, muttering about girls like you ruining good families. The baby, my son, Elias, came screaming into the world on a muggy August night in '95, all 9 pounds of him slick and furious, with Tommy's cleft chin and my storm-gray eyes. I named him after the prophet, the one who called down fire from heaven, because even then, in the sticky heat of that county hospital, I felt the burn of injustice coiling in my gut like a rattlesnake. Rita wouldn't let me stay long. "One mouth's enough to feed," she said, handing me a Greyhound ticket to the city and a wad of crumpled 20s from the tip jar. New York swallowed me whole, Times Square's neon glare blinding me as I clutched Elias's carrier, the subway's rumble vibrating through my bones like an earthquake. I crashed on couches in Alphabet City squats, waitressed at a Greek joint in Astoria where the owner pinched my ass and docked my pay for looking tired. Elias cried through the nights, his tiny fists balled against the roaches skittering across our studio floor, and I whispered stories of revenge to him like lullabies. How one day, we'd rise from this filth, and those who cast us out would beg at our feet. Hustle became my religion. By 20, I was slinging coffee at a Wall Street deli, eavesdropping on brokers barking orders into cell phones the size of bricks. One spilled his latte on my apron, triple shot espresso, scalding, and instead of yelling, I locked eyes with him, that silver-haired shark in a power tie, and said, "Sir, if you want it hotter next time, just ask." He laughed, slipped me a 50, and by week's end, I was his assistant's assistant, filing merger docs and learning the lingo, leverage, arbitrage, hostile takeovers. Elias started kindergarten in a public school with chain-link fences, but I promised him better. Private tutors, Ivy League, a life where no one could touch us. The betrayal festered, though, a slow rot under the surface. I'd get postcards from Mom sometimes, Hallmark guilt trips postmarked from the trailer park. "Praying for you, honey. God forgives." Dad's scrawl was rarer, always demanding money for medical bills from that old wound, like the limp he nursed was my fault.
Tommy?
He made the papers once, a third-string linebacker for the Giants, busted for DUIs and bar fights. Married some cheerleader type, popped out a couple kids, then faded into coaching Pee Wee leagues upstate. I clipped the article, pinned it to my fridge like a voodoo doll, and every promotion, Junior analyst at 25, VP at 30. I'd toast Elias with cheap Merlot. To the ghosts who made us. By 35, I'd clawed my way to senior partner at Kensington and Hale, a boutique firm specializing in distressed assets. My portfolio read like a revenge fantasy, snapping up failing factories in the Rust Belt, flipping them into luxury lofts for tech brothers. Elias was at Columbia, pre-med, straight A's, and a girlfriend from Scarsdale who didn't know the half of our origins. We lived in a Tribeca loft now, exposed brick and skyline views, the kind of place where doormen called me Ms. Reynolds with a deferential nod. I'd made it, not just survived, but thrived on the bones of that abandonment. But secrets have a way of clawing back from the grave. It started with a certified letter, the kind that arrives with the weight of a subpoena. Elias handed it to me one crisp October morning, his brow furrowed like he was diagnosing a patient already. "Mom, this is weird. It's from Buffalo." I slit the envelope with my letter opener, an antique dagger prop from a costume shop, and out spilled the poison. A notarized claim from my parents and brother, Jake, asserting familial rights to a share of my estate. They'd hired some bottom-feeder lawyer in Schenectady, citing New York probate law like it was a golden ticket. After all these years of hardship, the letter whined, "We deserve recompense for the emotional distress caused by your actions." My actions? The audacity hit like a sucker punch. I laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that echoed off the loft's high ceilings, then crumpled the paper and lit it in the sink, watching the flames lick up their lies. Emotional distress? They disowned me, left me to starve in the streets with a newborn, while they wallowed in their trailer park misery, popping out Jake 2 years later, like nothing had changed. Dad's foot had healed crooked, sure, but he parlayed it into disability checks and a perpetual victim narrative at the VFW bar. Mom baked pies for church fundraisers, playing the saint. And Jake? The baby brother I'd rocked to sleep before they erased me, now a 30-something meth head with a rap sheet longer than his excuses, per the public records I'd pulled in a midnight Google binge. That night, I couldn't sleep. Elias knocked on my door at 2 a.m., concern etching lines on his young face. "Mom, talk to me. Who's trying to shake you down?" I pulled him onto the bed, the way I had when he was 5 and scared of monsters under it. For the first time, I spilled it all, the shotgun blast, the Greyhound ride, the nights I cried myself hoarse while pumping breast milk in bathroom stalls. His eyes widened, not with pity, but fire. "They don't get a dime. We fight this."
We.
My boy, all grown, ready to stand in the breach. But as he hugged me, I felt the old snake stir. This wasn't just defense. This was war. The lawyer's office was a fluorescent hell in Midtown, the kind of place where dreams go to die under stacks of manila folders. Their attorney, a weaselly guy named Phil with a comb-over and a coffee stain on his tie, slid across a revised demand, $2.5 million, or they'd go public. "Slander campaign," he smirked. "Your reputation as a cutthroat dealmaker?"
Poof.
And the boy, Elias, right? Imagine the headlines. "Heiress's bastard son exposed." Bastard. The word hung like smoke, and I pictured Tommy's face, that smug quarterback grin, layered over this hacks. I leaned forward, nails digging into my palms. "Phil, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a girl shot her daddy's foot off for calling her trash. Guess who that girl is?" His Adam's apple bobbed, but he bluffed with legalese.
Fine.
"Let them sue. I'd bury them in discovery. Every bounce check, every bar tab, every time Dad used that limp to dodge child support for Jake." But as I stormed out into the rain-slicked streets, umbrellas snapping in the wind, I knew courts were too clean for this. They wanted my wealth. I'd give them a reckoning forged in the fire they lit. The plan crystallized over bourbon in a speakeasy off Wall Street, the kind with velvet curtains and jazz that slinks like a cat in heat. I'd invited my fixer, Lena, a ex-cop turned PI with tattoos snaking up her arms and a moral compass that spun like a roulette wheel. "Ava, honey," she drawled, swirling her neat pour. "You're talking scorched earth. These rubes ain't worth the felony." But her eyes gleamed, Lena lived for the gray zones, the ops that danced on the knife edge of legal. I laid it out. Not just countersue, but dismantle. Start with Dad, Robert Reynolds, 68, living off VA pension in a double-wide with a leaky roof and a 68 Mustang rusting in the yard. He'd always been the schemer, the one who taught Jake to hotwire cars for kicks and sold bootleg smokes from the garage. That shotgun blast? It wasn't random fury. I'd caught him mid-raid on the liquor cabinet, his breath reeking as he waved the rifle like a scepter, ranting about family honor, while his latest side hustle, fencing stolen tools from the mill, teetered on exposure. The pregnancy was the perfect cover. Blame the wayward daughter. Dodge the sheriff's questions. I'd taken the fall, all right, sworn silence to protect his ass, even as he disowned me. Wire fraud, Lena murmured, jotting notes on a napkin stained with ring marks. He cooked the books on those disability claims. I can get affidavits from the VFW boys. Mom, Evelyn, was the enabler, her prayers a smokescreen for enabling the chaos. She'd hidden his affairs, buried the bruises from his rages, and when I came home pregnant, she saw not a grandchild, but a mirror to her own shotgun wedding at 16. Jake? The wild card. Born after I left, he'd idolized Dad's tall tales, dropping out of high school to chase pipe dreams of NASCAR glory. Now, strung out and divorced with 2 kids he hadn't seen in years, he was the muscle or the weak link. We mapped it like a hostile takeover. Phase 1 intel. Lena's network, hackers in Brooklyn basements, informants in Buffalo lockups, dug deep. Turns out the family's hardship was a farce. Dad had squirreled away $40,000 in an offshore account from a 90s scam involving fake vet memorabilia. Mom volunteered at the church, all right, but skimmed bake sale cash for bingo nights. Jake? Busted last year for identity theft, stealing SSNs from the DMV to fund his oxy habit. Their lawyer, Phil? In on it, taking a cut for expedited filings. Phase 2. The lore. I funneled anonymous tips to their pastor, a fire and brimstone type who preached prosperity gospel with a side of judgment. The prodigal daughter returns, the email read, laced with just enough truth to hook. My net worth, pegged at $28 million from that steel mill flip in Pittsburgh. Church gossip spread like flu in a nursing home. By Thanksgiving, Mom was on the phone, voice quivering with faux warmth. Ava, baby, we've been prayin'. Your daddy's foot acts up something fierce in the cold. Maybe. Family reunion. I flew up on a private charter. Gulfstream sleek as a shark, Elias at my side, his jaw set like he was prepping for the MCAT. The trailer park hadn't changed. Sagging chain link, rusted swing sets, the air thick with wood smoke and despair. They waited on the porch. Dad in his recliner hauled outside, leg propped on a cooler. Mom in a floral muumuu, clutching a pie that smelled like store-bought crust. Jake slouched against the railing, eyes darting like a cornered raccoon, his wife nowhere in sight. No kids, no apologies. Just hungry stares as the limo purred to a stop. Ava. Mom lunged for a hug, but I sidestepped, letting Elias take the pie with a polite nod. Dad grunted, "Look at you, Miss High Roller," his voice gravel from Pall Malls. Jake smirked, "Heard you hit the lottery or something." We toured the upgrades, new vinyl siding from a VA grant, a flat screen blaring Fox News, and I played the part, remorseful prodigal, tears glistening on cue. "I've missed this." I lied, throat tight as I handed over a check, $50K, seed money for their dreams. Dad's eyes lit like he'd won the Powerball. Jake pocketed it faster than a pickpocket on the F train. That night, at a roadside motel with threadbare towels and a neon vacancy sign flickering like a dying pulse, Lena patched in from the shadows. "They're depositing tomorrow. Offshore accounts live. Dad's routing it through a shell in the Caymans." Elias paced, fists clenched. "Mom, this is nuts. What if they wise up?" I pulled him close, the scent of his cologne, cedar and ambition grounding me. "They won't. Schemers see suckers everywhere but the mirror." But as I stared at the water-stained ceiling, ghosts whispered. Was this justice or just another abandonment? Me playing God with their ruin? Christmas came bloody. Not with fists, but fallout. The check cleared, and Dad's greed did the rest, wiring the full haul to his investment advisor, a front for a Ponzi run by Phil's cousin in Jersey. Lena's plant, a Fed wiretap disguised as a glitch, netting enough for an FBI raid on New Year's Eve. Sirens wailed through the trailer park like banshees, blue lights painting the snow in electric veins. Dad in cuffs, howling about my damn foot, Mom sobbing on the steps, rosary beads scattering like pearls from a broken string, Jake bolting for the woods, only to trip into a ditch where Lena's team waited with zip ties. I watched from the limo, parked at the Treeline, Elias's hand cold in mine. "It's done," I whispered, but victory tasted like ash. The news hit local feeds. Reynolds' family busted in multi-million fraud. No mention of me, the silent architect, but the calls flooded in. Reporters sniffing for the prodigal daughter's angle. Old high school friends demanding congrats like they hadn't ghosted me. Tommy Hargrove even texted, out of the blue, from a number I'd blocked decades ago. "Saw the news. Proud of you, Ava. Coffee sometime." I deleted it, but the sting lingered, a fresh cut on old scar tissue. Back in the city, the high faded fast. Elias threw himself into rotations at Bellevue, stitching up junkies who reminded me too much of Jake. I buried myself in deals, a biotech startup in Boston, hostile bid on a media conglomerate bleeding ad revenue. But the snake twisted tighter. Dreams of Dad's bloodied boot, Mom's torn ultrasound, Jake's vacant stare as a toddler. Was ruining them enough? Or was the real revenge staring back from my mirror? A woman who'd become the monster they accused her of being? Then the twist. A manila envelope, no return address, stuffed under the loft door. Inside, yellowed Polaroids from '94, me at prom, arm in arm with Tommy. Dad in the garage, counting stacks of cash with a guy in a leather jacket. Mom, pregnant with Jake. But wait, no, the date stamp was wrong. February '94. Me, not due till August. My hand trembled as I flipped it. A doctor's note, forged script for prenatal vitamins, but signed by Dr. Hargrove, Tommy's old man, the town GP who'd hushed my checkups to keep things quiet. The secret they'd buried. Tommy knew about the baby early. Dad's scam buddy had spilled during a bender, and they'd colluded. Pay off the doc, pressure Tommy to bail, frame me as the slut to deflect from Robert's impending bust. I'd carried not just Elias, but their lie, the fall guy in a small-town cover-up that let Dad skate free. Rage boiled anew, but laced with something darker. Doubt. Had I become them? Scheming from penthouses while they rotted in cells? Spring thawed the city like a guilty conscience, cherry blossoms bleeding pink onto the sidewalks as I plotted the endgame. The feds had the family in holding, Dad facing 20 for wire fraud, Mom complicit for the skimming, Jake flipping like a weather vane for a plea on the ID theft. But Phil, the lawyer? He lawyered up, vanishing into a plea deal that painted him as the unwitting dupe. Unwitting my ass. Lena traced his Cayman wires to a beachfront condo in Miami, co-owned with, surprise, Tommy Hargrove, who'd parlayed his coaching gig into a sports consultancy funneling bets for Phil's bookie pals. The confrontation brewed like a nor'easter, all humid tension and gathering clouds. I flew solo this time, leaving Elias buried in finals, his texts a lifeline. "Don't do anything stupid, Mom. We won already." Won? The word chafed. Victory shouldn't taste like regret, like the sour afterbite of that first bourbon. I checked into the Fontainebleau under a ghost name, Elena Voss, nod to the fixer, and sipped my ties by the pool, watching Phil's orange tan deepen as he chain-smoked Cubans with Tommy at the tiki bar. They were easy marks. Tommy, paunchy now at 47, hair thin to a comb-over that screamed midlife denial, regaling waitstaff with tales of '98's Super Bowl glory from the sidelines, naturally. Phil, slick as ever, nursing a daiquiri and eyeing the bikinis like inventory. I approached at dusk, the sun a blood orange smear on the horizon, sliding onto the stool between them with a smile sharp as a stiletto. "Gentlemen, mind if I join? This view's too good for solo." Tommy's face drained Tropicana pale. Ava? What the hell? Phil choked on his olive, sputtering. Ms. Reynolds, this is irregular. Irregular. I laughed, low and throaty, ordering a round on their tab. Call it closure. Heard you boys have been busy, fraud, football fixes. Ring any bells? They blustered, Tommy blaring innocence. I coach kids, for Christ's sake. Phil citing attorney-client, all bluster and sweat. But I had photos. Tommy's truck at the trailer's drop site during Dad's scams. Phil's emails greenlighting the family shakedown. The hook sank deep when I slid across a USB. Lena's masterpiece. Audio of Jake's jailhouse confession, spilling how Tommy advised the offshore play. Daddy's old favor called in. You knew, I hissed, voice steady as the tide lapping the shore.
About the baby.
The setup. You all fed me to the wolves to save your hides. Tommy's eyes darted. Guilt, yes, but laced with that old quarterback cunning. Ava, listen. It was Robert's mess. I was a kid, scared shitless. We can make it right, settle out of court. Settle. The word ignited the powder keg. I leaned in, breath hot on his ear. Right? Like you did when you laughed off my pregnancy? When you let your old man forge that script to buy my silence. Phil interjected, oily as ever. Leverage cuts both ways, lady. We go public, your boy's future? Tarnished. Elias. The threat coiled like barbed wire. But I'd anticipated. Lena's shadows had already pinged IC on Phil's nanny, undocumented, courtesy of his connections. And Tommy? A quick call to the league office about those consultancy wagers. They folded like cheap suits. By midnight, in Phil's suite, mirrored walls reflecting our tableau of desperation, we drafted the terms: full confession to the feds, restitution to Jake's kids, the innocent pawns, and a public apology video, scripted to gut punch. Tommy's hand shook signing, his wedding ring glinting like a noose. I loved you, Ava. Once.
Loved.
Past tense, like a expired coupon. I pocketed the originals, poured us all shots of his top-shelf tequila. To family, I toasted, the burn masking the bile. Back in New York, the video dropped like a bomb on YouTube, grainy, tear-streaked faces in a conference room, Tommy choking out. I failed her. We all did. Views spiked, 500K overnight, comments a war zone. Karma's a bitch, cheered some. She's a vulture, profiting off pain, snarled others. The divide cracked me open. Had I liberated truth or weaponized it? Elias watched it stone-faced, then hugged me fierce. You're force, Mom. But, is this you? The question lingered, a splinter under the skin. The climax crashed on a sweltering July 4th, Independence Day irony thick as humidity. I'd arranged the reunion, court-mandated, under the guise of supervised visitation for Mom, paroled early on health grounds, stage 2 breast cancer, the great equalizer. The venue, my Tribeca loft, fireworks popping over the Hudson like distant artillery. Dad wheeled in first, prosthetic foot clicking on the hardwood, eyes hollowed by county chow. Jake followed, gaunt and twitchy, fresh from rehab. Lena encouraged. Mom last, chemo-balled under a scarf, clutching a Bible like armor. Elias played host, serving craft IPAs and sliders from a food truck, neutral ground, or so it seemed. But tension hummed like power lines in a storm. Dad grumbled about fancy cheese. Jake eyed the skyline with larcenous hunger. Mom prayed over the charcuterie. Then the pivot. I dimmed the lights, cued the projector. Not the apology vid, but home movies, VHS transfers I'd digitized. Me at 5, pushing Jake's stroller. Dad teaching Elias to throw a spiral on our first visit, pre-shakedown. Mom's letters, voiceover read by me, raw and unfiltered. Why? Dad rasped as the reel looped, tears carving tracks in his stubble. To rub it in?
No.
To humanize. Because you forgot we were people, not pawns. The room fractured then. Jake lunged for the remote, smashing it against the wall. Dad's chair toppled in a clatter of rage. Mom wailed, Lord, forgive us. Elias stepped between, voice steady. Enough. This ends tonight. But I held the line, the snake fully uncoiled. Sign the waiver. Full rights to my estate for you, lock, stock. But in exchange, you vanish. New names, new state. Or the feds get the rest. Controversy erupted like the fireworks outside. Jake sneered. Blackmail, sis? You're no better. Dad spat. That bullet took more than my foot. It took your soul. Mom, soft as ever. Ava, hates a chain. Break it. Their words landed like shrapnel, forcing the mirror. Was I freeing them, or exiling ghosts to haunt me cleaner? Elias's eyes pleaded, Team Mom, but fractured by the melee. The decision hung, a precipice where right blurred to wrong. We signed at dawn, the city stirring below like a beast shaking off sleep. Dad's scrawl was a shaky X, Jake's a flourish of defiance, Mom's a pious loop. Not the waiver. No, in the heat, it morphed. They kept a sliver, 5% trust for the grandkids, administered by Elias. Controversial? Hell yes. Pundits on cable called it enabling dysfunction. My board whispered PR nightmare. But in that gray hour, as coffee brewed and the loft filled with the scent of rain-washed asphalt, it felt like absolution or damnation, depending on the light. They left in Ubers to Penn Station, bound for Phoenix under aliases Lena forged, sun-bleached anonymity, subsidized by my generosity. Dad muttered a gruff thanks at the door, his limp a metronome of defeat. Jake slipped me a crumpled photo, him and his girls at Disney, pre-meth, whispering, "Don't be a stranger, Ava." For them. Mom hugged last, frail bones under my arms murmuring, "You're still my girl. Always." The door clicked shut, and silence rushed in like floodwater. Elias collapsed on the couch, spent. That was biblical. We laughed, hysterical and hollow, then cried. Him for the family he glimpsed and lost in hours, me for the girl who'd fired that shot, trading love for survival. You did it for us, he said, and maybe he was right. Or maybe it was for the 17-year-old still screaming in the snow. The twist slithered in weeks later, innocuous as junk mail, a DNA test kit result, unordered, from an ancestry site Jake had mined in jail. Elias's profile, 99.9% matched to
Tommy.
We knew that. But the fine print, a sibling hit. Half-sister, born 96, adopted out quietly. Tommy's cheerleader wife, post-giant scandal, had carried twins, one theirs, one mine's shadow. The secret's final layer. Dad's scam wasn't just cash. It funded Tommy's hush money to the agency, bearing the twin to protect the family image. I'd borne the abandonment, but so had she, Lily Hargrove, now a prosecutor in D.C., railing against fraud on cable news, oblivious to the blood tie. I debated telling her, truth as bomb or bomb. Elias voted reveal. She deserves to know. We all do. But as I stared at the skyline, fireworks scars fading on the horizon, doubt gnawed. Expose and shatter her world. Drag her into our vortex? Or let the grave keep its bones? Let her prosecute in peace? The debate raged internal, a civil war of mercy versus justice. In the end, I mailed the kid anonymous, no note, just coordinates to our shared hell. Months blurred, biotech deal closed, $15 mill bump to the coffers. Elias matched at Johns Hopkins, beaming in his white coat. The family? Whispers from Lena. Dad tinkering with hot rods in the desert, Mom volunteering at a mission, Jake coaching Little League, sober 6 months. No calls, no demands, just echoes.
Tommy?
Crickets, then a postcard from Miami. Peace, Ava. T. Phil? Disbarred, slinging real estate in the Keys.
Redemption?
Or Pyrrhic. Readers. Those who devoured the tell-all I ghost wrote for a vanity press, spiking bestseller lists, split like fault lines. Forums lit up. Ava's a hero, gutting the leeches. Vigilante bullshit. Courts exist for a reason. Talk shows pitted shrinks against ethicists. Trauma's cycle broken versus perpetuated in stilettos.
Me?
I sip Merlot on the terrace, Elias's laughter drifting from video calls, and wonder if the snake's finally shed its skin. Last Independence Day, I walked the High Line alone, vendors hawking flags and freedom fries, the air electric with possibility. A text buzzed, unknown number. Hey, sis? Lily here.
Kit came.
Coffee? DC. The twists echo. Opening a door I might chain shut. Heart pounding, I type back. Name the time. Because revenge? It's not the bullet or the boardroom. It's choosing, every dawn, not to fire again. In the end, they took my youth, my trust. I took their illusions, their easy sins. But the wealth? That's ours, mine. Elias's, maybe Lily's. Stolen back, penny by bloody penny, in the land where the pursuit of happiness is the ultimate hustle. And, if that's controversial,
Good.
America thrives on the fight.